Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna showcase some, by the way, these are the slides. How many of you are new to the UAE? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, you're not new to it. You've got a beautiful longevity clinic, and you Google something called Bioscaler if you want to be living healthy. Okay. Anyway, let's put this story together. And the story is about how do we make sure why UAE became the world's capital for the global capital market. Of course, not by real estate, nor I'm auctioning and real estate over here or any apartments for you. So this is not really selling you anything. How many of you want me to continue? Because I don't see anybody's paying attention. Only one person, 2, 3, 4. The rest of you need to go out? Because if you're not, go out and leave. Doesn't matter. Yeah, thank you very much. So what I'm trying to attempt to do with you guys is to build the building blocks why UAE became a capital where people are coming and investing capital over here. Now, many of the panelists have spoken about amazing stuff, where capital goes through. Of course, capital cannot go to a country where there are a lot of uncertainties, where policies are fragmented, or they change, or regulatory regime is not very good. So capital only goes to where you have the right places in place, so where you have strong execution power. But just to put them into perspective, the very important things you need to have is infrastructure. That's the first building block. If you don't have right connectivity from logistically, whether you have ports or airline industry or within the country itself, if that building block is not there, then you're not able to move forward. And we happen to be as well to be the sole operator of, we actually bring all the locomotives and also train business. So we are actually the only authorized agent for the train. So by Q2 when the train comes, these are coming and their looks exactly the same to here. So the first building block is your infrastructure, which is very, very important. That takes us to the other important things. Your capital is supposed to be rational, not emotional. Because if you're going after one deal, you'll not be able to make it. So the second building block for you to happen, for you to reach to the paramount of being the global capital, to attract the global capital market, is to make sure that you have certainty in your policies, in what you offer as well. And how do you make sure your regulation work in tandem? And I will share a few examples in a while, but I'll just put the headlines first of all, and how your policies are sustainable. So if you go to countries, which we did, we invested in other countries globally, the policies kept on changing, unfortunately. So that became very difficult for us to do any investment, because when the new regime comes, a new president comes, he comes up with a new kind of ideas. So you're not able to continue your investment and you have a risk over here. And that's why, like the Usain Bolt, you need to make sure you have a strong execution power. So if you have great vision, but you don't couple it with execution power, i.e., when we said in the corporate world, when the rubber meets the road, then you'll not be able to really make sure you made use of the right capital being invested. So these are the second building block after having the infrastructure. But they need to up the game later on even more. If you've invested and you needed a contract which is there and something goes wrong, someone or system need to protect you. And that system is supposed to be the governance systems. So we've something, oops, right? No, right. So the governance systems, what we early on realized that it's important for us to have a common law being established over here, which is DIFC. We got 2 financial centers, one of the 2 largest, most expanding. You don't even have spaces over there, and ADGM, Dubai International Financial Center and ADGM. It's work under a common law. That's how they operate on. It's independent courts they have. They've got transparent policy, which is aligned with international standards and worldwide recognized. Now, if things go sour, you always have a law behind you to back you up. So that's your third building block for you to reach up there. But then, we've gone the 3 of it, we still need to go even higher up for us to be the global capital, which is, how do you make sure your execution power is there? But before that, simplicity, which is very important. So the efficiency becomes your new alpha. What we offer in the market over here, you've got 0 personal tax, which is something very attractive, very important to have. You've got competitive income tax for the corporate tax, which is 9%. And by the way, it was mentioned in the previous talk, the only reason we've done the 9% tax, not just because we wanted taxes, because of 2 reasons. One was because the the IMF and the World Bank is pushing everybody to tax people because they don't want other countries to be disadvantageous. That was reason number one. Reason number two, US came up with the universal 15% tax. So we said, okay, if the companies, international companies operating in UAE going to be taxed 15%, we might get some pie of that thing. So that's why we said 9% would be reduced. Third thing, which was the tax treaties. I think as of the last count I know, UAE is the #1 country today who has the highest tax treaty with other companies. So you don't have double taxation from that perspective. The other important factor is you're able to do business, and the moment you want to repatriate your capital to any country in the world, you'll be able to do that thing. There are many countries in the world you'll not be able to do so. Now, we've achieved 4 building blocks over here. What goes next? We're geographically actually presented in a very important place, so we're able to use that thing. So connectivity becomes paramount. We would be able to reach within 8 hours 80% of the world population. And if you want to go 4 hours, probably 2/3 of the world population. So whatever you develop over here, it becomes a beacon for you to really export it globally. So you're able to connect to the east and to the west in a very comfortable time zone. So you're actually placed very well. Now, but what are the other things the government is doing to support the investors? I always say there are several key trends going on globally. The 2 key trends which are defining the business landscape globally, the countries which are digitizing their economy, so digital economy. And of course, when I talk about digital economy, and being a student of computer science and working in AI models for the last 20, 30 years, anything to do with digital, the government is in forefront and investing on it. We've already announced that last year, the government is investing about $1.4 trillion behind the ecosystem of all the new technology, whether it's AI, data center, compute powers, and so forth. Now, the GDP of UAE is about 570 billion, so you're investing 2.4 times more than the GDP of your country. No single country has done that. Of course, companies might be doing it individually because the investor investing, but a country as a sovereign wealth fund investing, that's not there. The second trend, which is equally very, very important, it's your sustainable, which is circular economy. How do we make sure we have alternative ways vis-a-vis the fossil fuel that we have today? And how do we make sure that we have green cities? So these 2 key trends became an asset class by itself. So a lot of people who are investing in capitals, you'll see them investing in both of these trends which is going on. But to entice people to come and invest, the government itself is investing behind them. Now, if we explore a little bit on the digital economy or investing behind AI or digital twin or even blockchain did not happen out of the blue because you cannot just switch on buttons and switch off buttons. These have gone long back. So our history of starting to become digital or e-government started back in 1995. So it's 30 years ago, we started the journey of digitizing our country and city. So that's why you see the huge investment coming up. But for us to digitize the country and companies, you need to make sure that you work on the culture because people usually do not want to change. People don't want to digitize. So that has worked on very well. That's why we made sure all the ministers we have, all the N-1, -2 we have, all of them were actually digital savvies because they were mandated to understand culturally what it's all about. That's why starting this year, all public schools are mandated to study AI. Because that's going to be the future thing. So if you want to dwell more into this thing, I just gave a TED Talk last year on what are the 6 things that we need to teach our education system and how do we reform our education system. Because we heard in the previous panel that education needs to be invested, but not the education we have today because it's needing to be evolving. Blockchain, we were the first city in the world to adopt blockchain in all government services. That's why you're able to issue many things in minutes and days, not like other countries which takes a longer time. So that did not happen out of the blue. The other thing is, one of the things we need to know, in terms of greenhouse gas emission, we're probably not the highest. It's not 8% in the Middle East. It's about 5.8%, so that's a typo over there. But to combat these things and the urban growth that's going to happen, it's projected by the World Economic Forum that 2.5 billion people will be living in cities by 2050. That means there'll be a lot of strains on building more cities. That means you'll have more buildings to be there. That means more greenhouse gas emission will be there. The good thing about it, only 60% of that city will exist by 2050 are built. That means we have a room to go and invest behind those technologies to make sure the cities are sustainable. That's why Mohammed Solar Panel, which is the Shams project, This is the world's largest concentrated place of solar panel which has been there. It was supposed to be, when it's completed, 5 gigawatt, but a few months ago, they've upgraded the game to make it 7 gigawatt. Masdar City, when we signed Paris Agreement came in 2015. Paris Agreement basically telling and mandating countries, it's an international treaties, to reduce the temperature by, I think, between 1.5% to 2 Celsius by 2050, which is not going to happen anyway. Masdar City started much before Paris Agreement being there in 2015. Masdar City started in 2006. That tells you the foresight of the leadership of this country, how they thought about it. We were the first country to appoint the AI minister back in 2017, when AI was not permeated yet in terms of people knowing about it, although AI predates to 1648. And people were working on the first model of AI back in 1982, which is predicting markets and models, started by a company called Renaissance Technologies. Now, if these two trends, government is investing behind, that also encourages and becomes a landscape for people to come and invest and co-invest with the government. The last pedigree which makes now us to be in the capital of the market is the safety. Because if all the 5 blocks are there and there's no safety, then it's very difficult for you to be here with your family and bringing your people you're working in. That's why UAE was marked the safest country in the world last year, as of May last year. And Abu Dhabi, the capital, was the safest country for 9 years in a row in May 2025. Of course, the next May it will be announced again. Of the 10 cities globally, 5 safest cities are in UAE. That tells you how this city is safe, or the country is safe. And despite being consciously in a geopolitical situation where we are today, for the last 50 years, there have been a lot of tension geopolitically. Yesterday at night, I was in another forum in Abu Dhabi, and the question was posed to me, what do we do with investment, particularly when it comes to private market, secondary market, and within GCC and UAE, because the tension is going on. I said, look, we've been having tension for the last 50 years. So there will be always ups and downs, but overall, there'll be always winners being there. So with that, you're now seeing how investments, why we become a very investment hub over here and why people are investing. Now, family businesses who are investing as well, they think multi-generation. So those companies who think long-term, they'll be the winners. Those who are chasing only deals, they're only going to be foresighted to only look after those deals. So I think UAE, from that perspective, is not a trading hub. It's a base for you to anchor, you bring your company over here and start up over here. There are amazing stories of people I know of. I brought off over here family businesses as well. They're invested over here, and they made new products over here, and today they're going globally because of the connectivity we have. And this is how we're progressing. Of course, what made all that possible? There are 3 key things that makes them possible. It's important to have a vision and clarity of the vision. But UAE has mastered something very rare. One is longevity planning. We don't plan for 5 years. We plan for 30 years, even up to 100 years. This is not a joke, easy thing to be done. In the corporate world, it's very difficult to do, by the way. Go to a website called u.ae. You'll get to see what UAE is doing in the coming 10 years, 15 years, 30 years, and by 2050 and 2071. The plan has been laid out over there. And this is not only now, this has been all the time. Why? Because the government is transparent in what they want to achieve and what they want to do. So when they're attracting people to come over here, you'll be able to hold us even accountable to that extent. Vision without execution, when rubber does not meet the road, the vision becomes futile. Many of us have great ideas, but if you're not able to execute them quickly, it doesn't move forward. What also ticks, it's important that you have an aligned team. You may have great vision, you may have execution power as an individual, but if you don't have great team which is aligned with you, then you will not be able to run the race for a longer time. You'll probably run you'll sprint, but you will not be able to marathon. For you to marathon for a long time, you need to have all these 3 aligned. Of course, these are our leaders, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. But I always present these slides. We do not forget ourselves from the humble beginning we came 54 years back. The founder of the country, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, may Allah be pleased with his soul, he used to water plant himself. He used to dream of the country to be what is it today, and he talked about it in his books. And when we were looking at desert and sand, he was looking at what we're looking at today. So that vision has continued with his progeny. And I think it will continue even further with the next progeny. So the message for you is, when you have governance, you have confidence. When you have confidence, you'll be able to attract capital. And capital spent wisely, and if you steward it correctly, you'll be able to go a longer way into making sure this future is built correctly. With that, thank you very much, gentlemen.